The order came in at 8:52 p.m. Jalen Thomas, 17 years old, zipped up his red delivery jacket and double-checked the address on his phone. Brantford Estates, a gated neighborhood, big houses, bigger fences. He'd been there a few times before, usually tipped well. It was his last delivery of the night. The food was already packed. Pad Thai, extra spring rolls, Thai iced tea. He strapped it into the back of his bike and started pedaling through the cool suburban streets of Rockdale, headphones in, hood up against the wind. 10 minutes later, he reached the iron gates. A white man in a security booth squinted at him through the glass. "Delivery," Jalen said, lifting the bag. "You on the list?" Jalen showed him the phone screen. Address, name, order time, all legit. The guard hesitated, then buzzed him in. Brantford Estates was quiet. Too quiet. No music, no cars, just trimmed lawns and motion sensor lights. As Jalen wheeled up to the address, he noticed the house was almost completely dark, just one porch light flickering. He knocked, waited. Then a voice behind him. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" Jalen turned to see a man, white, mid-40s, holding a flashlight like a weapon. "Delivery," Jalen repeated, showing the bag. "That's not your house. Back away, now." Jalen barely had time to speak before the man shouted, "Police! We got a prowler!" The food hit the ground. The flashing red and blue lights hit the sidewalk within minutes. 2 patrol cars pulled up fast, tires screeching. Jalen stood frozen, both hands raised, the spilled food box still at his feet. The man who had shouted, later identified as Alan Becker, a resident of Brantford Estates, stood several feet away, arms crossed, nodding toward the teen. "That's him," he told the officers. "He was sneaking around." The first officer, a tall white man with a tight jaw, ordered Jalen to get on the ground. Jalen tried to explain. "I'm a delivery driver. I got an order for on the ground, now." He dropped chest to concrete, knees bruising instantly. The second officer cuffed him. Too tight, asked no questions. They rifled through his pockets, took his phone, scanned the food receipt, ignored it. Alan stood nearby, arms still folded. "Just doing my part. Can't be too careful these days." One officer returned from the squad car after a quick radio check. "He's clear," the officer muttered, annoyed. "Kid's name checks out. Real delivery." There was an awkward pause. No apology, just silence. Jalen was uncuffed and told, "You can go." No explanation, no help, just humiliation. As the patrol cars rolled away, the food lay cold in the street. Jalen picked it up with shaking hands and whispered, "You forgot the tip." By the time Jalen got home, it was past 10:30. He said nothing to his mom. He left the delivery bag in the hallway, went straight to the shower, and stood under the water until it stopped feeling like a siren. He replayed it all. The voice, the flashlight, the cuffs, the silence. Again and again. The next morning, his manager at the delivery app called him. "We got a complaint. Customer says the food was late and tampered with." Jalen didn't argue. He knew what that meant. A warning was placed on his profile. One more complaint, and he'd be suspended. He didn't go to school that day. In the afternoon, he sat on the porch, hoodie up, eyes hollow. His little sister, Layla, sat beside him, not asking questions. Just sitting, like she could feel it through his silence. Word spread quickly at school. A video had surfaced. Grainy security cam footage of Jalen being cuffed in Brantford Estates. Someone posted it on TikTok with the caption, "Wrong place, wrong skin." It blew up. Some kids defended him, others didn't. One comment read, "If he wasn't doing anything, why'd they stop him?" Jalen didn't respond. He didn't have to. His story had already started moving on its own. The local news picked up the story 2 days later. But not because of Jalen. It was Alan Becker who gave the first interview, standing confidently in front of his manicured lawn, arms folded, tone calm and measured. "I didn't mean any harm," he told the reporter. "But you have to understand, it's a private neighborhood. We've had break-ins before. He didn't belong here. I was protecting my community." The headline read, "Resident describes scare in quiet neighborhood." No mention of Jalen by name. The article described him as a young man wearing a hooded sweatshirt and approaching a dark house. The comments section exploded. One read, "He's lucky it was just the police." Another, "Why are people making this about race?" At school, Jalen felt eyes on him. Some sympathetic, others suspicious. Teachers offered polite, distant smiles. The school counselor asked if he wanted to talk. He declined. Only Ms. Daniels, his English teacher, said what others wouldn't. What happened to you wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was systemic. She slid a book across the desk, The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. "You might find some answers in here," she said. Jalen took it, but didn't open it. Not yet. By the end of the week, the video had been viewed over 2 million times. #wrong skin trended for 48 hours. A local activist group posted a statement calling for accountability from both the police and the neighborhood security. An online petition demanded an apology and policy change. It gained 30,000 signatures in 3 days. Jalen said nothing. He watched the noise from a distance, as if the video were about someone else, as if the headlines, tweets, and angry duets had nothing to do with the boy who still flinched when the doorbell rang. Reporters began contacting his mom, some polite, some pushy. She declined every request. At school, a few students asked for selfies, others offered hollow praise. "You're famous, bro," one said. "Crazy." Jalen didn't smile. He had become a symbol, but he had never asked to be. That night, he opened the book Ms. Daniels gave him. The first line burned. "You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read." He closed the book again. Sometimes the truth was too heavy to hold for long. The school auditorium had never been so full. A community conversation was organized. A town hall to address recent tensions. Chairs were lined in rows. News crews stood near the back. A banner read, "Moving Forward Together." Jalen sat in the third row, hoodie off, eyes forward. The police chief took the mic first. He spoke in slow, practiced sentences about protocol and public safety. He didn't mention cuffs. He didn't mention race. Then came Alan Becker. He read from a note card. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I made a judgment call. In hindsight, maybe it was too quick." Some people clapped. Others stayed quiet. Then, without warning, Ms. Daniels stepped forward. What happened wasn't a misunderstanding. It was profiling. The room stirred. She continued. "When a black teenager delivering food is seen as a threat, that's not fear. That's conditioning." A few people walked out, but others, mostly students, nodded. Afterward, a small line formed by Jalen's seat. A teacher, a parent, a classmate. No big speeches, just quiet words. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was this real. That could have been my son." Jalen didn't say much, But for the first time, he felt something shift. Not fixed, but cracked open. On Tuesday morning, Jalen's phone buzzed with a new email from the delivery app. Subject: Notice of suspension. They had reviewed recent customer concerns and determined his account would be permanently deactivated. No appeal, no explanation beyond a generic policy quote. Jalen stared at the screen. Not just because of the job, though he needed that, but because it was a second punishment for surviving. That evening, his mom found him on the couch, silent. "They banned me," he said. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She sat next to him and placed her hand over his. "We'll fight it," she said. "We don't back down." Within a day, Ms. Daniels helped them draft a letter. The activist group posted about it online. A black teen gets profiled, handcuffed, and then fired for being the victim. Public pressure reignited. #Justice4. Jalen began trending. Journalists reached out again. This time, his mom said yes. Jalen didn't want to talk, but he knew he had to. This wasn't just about him anymore. The news crew arrived on Friday afternoon. They set up cameras in Jalen's living room. He sat on the couch in a clean hoodie, flanked by his mom and Miss Daniels. The reporter asked soft, serious questions. His mom did most of the talking, but when Jalen finally spoke, the room went quiet. "They didn't ask what I was doing. They just saw me, and that was enough." The segment aired that night. It was 5 minutes long, but it rippled. Emails flooded the station. Protesters gathered outside the Branford security office. A city councilwoman released a statement calling for a review of neighborhood watch procedures. The delivery app, under pressure, reached out to reopen the conversation. But Jalen didn't respond immediately. He took a walk that night instead. He passed the closed Thai restaurant where he used to pick up orders. He passed the neighborhood boundary where blue lights had once painted the pavement. He walked through it all, not to forget, but to reclaim it. And for the first time in weeks, no one stopped him. A week later, Jalen attended a community youth forum hosted by the same activist group that had spoken out for him. The room was full of teens, parents, and teachers, not for protest, but for stories. One by one, kids stood up and shared. A girl described being followed in a store. A boy spoke about being pulled over 3 times in a month for looking suspicious. Another said his teacher always called on him to read when the topic was slavery. Jalen didn't plan to speak. He sat in the back, hands in his lap. But something shifted. He stood. The room quieted. "I didn't come here to be known," he said. "But if they're going to know my name, I want them to know the truth behind it. That what happened to me isn't rare. It's just recorded this time." Silence, then applause. Later, a younger kid approached him, maybe 12, eyes wide. "You're the guy from the video," the boy said. "You made me feel less alone." Jalen smiled, just slightly. He hadn't fixed the system. But maybe he helped someone survive it. Jalen never returned to the delivery job. He didn't want to. Instead, he joined the youth committee that formed after the town hall. They met weekly in a church basement, surrounded by folding chairs, whiteboards, and ambition. Together, they worked on real change, proposing bias training for security personnel, lobbying the school to adopt an inclusive curriculum, hosting Know Your Rights workshops for local teens. Jalen didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. One afternoon, he led a session. Not dramatic, just honest. It's not about getting even. It's about being seen and safe. The delivery app never apologized directly, but after a public statement and backlash, they reinstated his profile. He declined. Instead, Jalen began writing, not social media posts, not viral hashtags, essays, speeches, policy drafts. His words, once silenced by fear, had found direction. And though the system remained flawed and the fear never fully left, Jalen was no longer just a headline or a hashtag. He was a voice, one that wouldn't fade when the camera turned off.